With Gerard Whateley getting an attack of the D's.
It's an old-fashioned coup, but it's absolutely deceitful, duplicitous and distasteful. How Ross Lyon's reputation remains intact as a result of this is just a little beyond my comprehension at the moment.
A week earlier he was suggesting he should have gone to the D's and he finished up with a Docker, so lots of D's in the Whateley sermon.
Gerard, he's a coach, he's not a minister of religion. I mean, I don't understand why so many people rush to the moral high ground on this. It was messy, and I feel for Mark Harvey like we all do. But, I mean, Fremantle made a very bold decision because they believe this bloke might make a difference to them winning a premiership. And Ross Lyon will go to his 5th club as a career coach.
And I think you mentioned probably about a month ago, Mike, about the 3-month get-out clause.
Yeah,
that was put in negotiations with the St Kilda Football Club. They had a 6-month payout.
Correct, which they put in first.
Which they put in first, and in lieu of that, there was a 3-month. So for people to say that he's broken a contract, that's not right. He's exercised a clause in his contract. So, look, it has evoked a lot of emotion. There's no question about that.
When I ask you this, Rizzy, my memory was that you were critical of Mark Thompson's departure from Geelong. Now, he used the same 3-month notice clause that Ross Lyon used. Is Ross Lyon any different?
Yeah, we debated that. I don't think I was critical of Bomber leaving. I think any person can leave a footy club. I mean, the circumstances are different. I think I was more querying how did he end up at Essendon, and there was a big mess rather than that. I think Bomber leaving Geelong, I don't think anyone had a problem with that. Yeah, I think with Ross leaving St Kilda, I don't have a problem with that either because he's exercised a clause in his contract. And I think he also mentioned himself, and clearly one of the frustrations was these negotiations started 6 or 7 months ago. And he mentioned that in his press conference. I think both parties have been very good at not airing any dirty laundry, and I'm not about to get into that. But clearly Ross was very, very disappointed that it had taken so long, and it was only Wednesday of last week that they came up with a significant offer.
Tell me this, was he deceitful in allowing Craig Kelly and Dan Richardson from Elite Sports Properties to negotiate in good faith with St Kilda and for St Kilda to respond accordingly while Ross was doing a deal to go elsewhere?
Well, I don't know a lot about the Fremantle thing, but I understand that it would have been impossible for Steve, I think it's Steve, to deal with
Steve Rossage?
Yeah, the deal with Craig Kelly, because obviously Craig Kelly was with Mark Harvey.
Correct.
So I don't think they could have done that. Look, I still think clearly Ross, even though is very, very, very disappointed, as he mentioned, was giving St Kilda one last opportunity. Where it all ended up and how it all got to Fremantle, I'm not 100%
So should he not have resigned and said, look, I find this untenable at St Kilda, I'm out of here, and then waited for Fremantle to learn the news and say, geez, we'd be pretty happy to have you?
Look, I'm not privy to every discussion that's going on, but I'd be very surprised if Michael Nettlefold didn't know exactly why Ross Lyon was leaving.
Just on the way the Dockers handled it, you mentioned the word messy, and I think most people felt great empathy for Mark Harvey, who in the morning was spruiking and promoting his club. Those around him, Steve Harris, Steve Rossage and probably Chris Bond, knew what may occur. Difficult circumstances for them. Surely they could have delayed the announcement and given it some time to breathe.
Gerard, you know you're in the media. I mean, you can't, if there's a major announcement and you've made it and you're committed to it, you've got to announce it. I mean, I understood the loyalty that the Fremantle people were talking about. I mean, Mark Harvey's the victim, there's no question about that, and he's been treated harshly because they had no chance of making the finals this year with their injuries. But the Fremantle officials said, and I agree rightly, said their loyalty is to their supporter base. Now, some of the supporters kicked up and didn't like what had happened. But if they win a premiership next year, those same supporters will be pretty happy with the decision. Yeah,
look, absolutely. I think you've got to feel for Mark Harvey. There's no question about it. You know, it's obviously very, very tough for him. Yeah, hopefully he goes on and you know, ironically, maybe St Kilda goes after him. But, yeah, I think that way that's handled. But, you know, everyone, I think, is now moving on, and they've got to move on. And like you mentioned, obviously Ross's job now is to bring success to the Fremantle Football Club.
It is slightly different, and I guess the James Hird, the love affair that the Essendon fans have with James Hird, I guess always suggested they were never going to see through it.
Straight back to the bosom for Hirdy.
Straight back to the bosom, whereas there's 50%, 60%, whatever it is, of the Fremantle Docker faithful still really upset, really ropeable with their club.
50 to 60%.
Well, maybe the vocal minority ring the radio stations, Mike, but there's plenty of people, I guess, voicing their disconcert.
Yeah, look, I know. Look, I think that they took this bold decision. They think this bloke will make a difference, as in Ross Lyon. Their job is to run the footy club and to have it as successful as they can possibly make it. Now, there's going to be victims on the way through, and unfortunately for Mark, he's the one this time.
Yeah, look, I think the other thing we've talked about other coaches before. I mean, I'd like to maybe ask Gerard as an ex-Melbourne. I mean, we saw Gary Lyon on Thursday night, and I happened to come home from basketball and watched it even in Sydney. He was really spruiking the fact that Melbourne never made an offer to... Did you guys find that strange?
No doubt. You and I talked about it this last week. I was surprised at that. It was almost like a badge of honour. Gary sort of saying, "Oh, we haven't shown any interest in Ross Lyon." I must say, my thought on Thursday night was that was derelict. But then, retrospectively, Neil had already won their support earlier in the week, and Mark Neil got the job the next day.
But there's nothing about retrospective. I mean, surely Gary had to find out whether there was any interest.
No, I'm saying, I think Melbourne were committed. By the time the Ross Lyon storm broke, they were committed to Mark Neil philosophically.
Yeah, but that's just a timing issue. Surely they inquired as to whether Ross Lyon was available, and I think Gary did say that he inquired from Craig Kelly, but was told that he was staying at St Kilda.
Is that right?
I don't know. I just find it very, very strange that a club that was looking for a coach and by their own admission had talked about an experienced coach and obviously gone down the list, and we don't know exactly what's happened, but we believe maybe they'd made an inquiry to Mick, to Clarkson. I'm just staggered to think that they wouldn't have put something in front of an experienced coach that was a possible, 50-50.
I agree.
Would he have gone to the Demons if an offer had been put there, do you think?
Oh, look, I have no idea. I mean,
I'm saying,
you do have an idea,
yes,
Bruce. Give me
No, honestly, I have no idea. Obviously, he was leaving St Kilda.
Yeah.
And would he have taken up a Melbourne offer? Possibly.
Wouldn't he have preferred to live here?
Look, I have not spoken to him about that. But, I mean, would he have considered it?
I think there's no doubt that if Melbourne had made an offer of a similar size to the one that Fremantle offered, that he would have been at Melbourne.
From an historical perspective, Mike, the Dockers have been the butt of jokes for a long time. This would have to be the biggest hit they've ever landed in their history.
I agree.
Surely.
Now, we don't know whether it's successful. We don't know whether it's the right decision, but it was bold, it was adventurous, it was quick. So I sort of say, if that's their belief that they'll be a better team under Ross Lyon, well, I think their obligation is to do it.
Look, I don't think there's any question Ross Lyon's a very, very good coach. So have they gone out and got a very good coach? Absolutely.